Thank you, Dr. Tan, for giving us MyIpoh the opportunity to have a short interview with you. So, Doctor, please tell us more about yourself.
Thank you very much, Sharul.
Yes, Sharul.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Doctor. Likewise.
Yeah. So about myself, I'm actually from Brunei.
Right.
I'm not from Ipoh.
I married an Ipoh girl, so I came to Ipoh. So my childhood, my parents were both teachers,
Right.
actually, and then later they became assembly shop. We opened our assembly shop.
Right.
So from 13 years old, I was already working. Never stopped actually since then.
Enterprising. Yeah.
My grandparents were also assembly shop owners.
Alright.
Just whole line of that. So okay, kind of a little bit better now. Property development. Yeah. So I went to the UK to study, and my first degree was at Edinburgh University.
Right.
Actually, I wanted to be an architect.
All right.
Yeah, I enrolled as an architect. After first year, I realized that I'm not so good at drawing. So I changed to computer science. Then I went on to Cambridge University, did my PhD there.
Fantastic.
Computer-aided design. Came back, started joined HP actually in Singapore. Very soon after that, I teamed up with a friend and we started a tech venture company in Singapore.
Right. What's it
That was
called?
kind of interesting. It was called Parallax.
Parallax. All right.
Parallax Research, yeah. We were into infrared. There was a new standard at that time called IRDA, Infrared Data Association Communication. But it's all been taken over by Bluetooth wireless now.
Right.
By that time, it was like the thing to be. So it was kind of like a tech startup. Then at the moment, okay, you see, and I'm a property developer here, but later we'll come into that, I guess. On my personal side, I mean, I have 2 children, I'm married. I'm a practicing Buddhist, so I do quite a bit of meditation the last 10 years or so. Yeah, so I find that life is more balanced that way, you know, it's not just all work and making money, so we have to look after everybody. We're all kind of, as we say, interdependent.
Excellent school of thought.
So it's just briefly here.
Right. How did you get into this property business?
Yeah, property business, like I said, maybe I have some kind of karma, you know, to come into this business. I wanted to be an architect, I couldn't, but now I'm in the business.
To fulfill this.
Yeah. I always like building, I guess.
Right.
Actually I got married, like I said, to Ipoh girl. So my father-in-law, Dato' Kekeling, the owner of Kita Property. At that time, he asked me to join him to look after the technical part, technology part. We had a company in Switzerland called Revox. It's a hi-fi, high-fidelity audio equipment company. Actually, the company was very famous. It was the first gramophone company.
Right.
This is a reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Wow.
That recorded the first Beatles song.
Right.
Yes, in the 60s, in the 50s or 60s. So it was one of the best. Anyway, my father-in-law, he bought it over and then he asked me to look after it, so I was regularly traveling to Switzerland.
Right.
Eventually we sold the company, but at the same time we obviously had a very big property group. So one way or the other I got involved in the property business, and my first project with Kita Property was actually called Vista. You know Golf Vista?
Vista,
Valley,
right.
Yeah. Miru Valley was facing a lot of problems actually at that time.
Right.
When we first took over. So for many years we didn't have a lot of property. And Golf Vista was one of the first, and it was a high rise. So that got off, we joint venture with some other people to do that. So that was my first taste of property development.
Nice.
Then after that there was a few more property. Some of them won some awards. Riverside was got some award if you look up the internet.
Right.
Then a few years later, so we actually it was my father-in-law's idea that we split, become two companies. So he has two children, his son and his daughter.
Right.
So he said, okay, each of you do your own thing. So because I started the property in Malacca,
Right.
a big project in Malacca at that time, so I took over that project and started from there. That project was called Taman Bukit Emas.
Right.
It's since been completed. And so that was our first start in Malacca. Here in Ipoh, we also started doing, first project was a joint venture called Somerset, semi-B in Tiger Lane.
Right.
Yeah. Then we went from there to do Dorset, which is also a gated and guarded community. They're all here.
Right.
And then we came to this project, and this is Green Park. This is a joint venture with Jinpeksu Holding. It's an ex-mining land. They actually owned the land before, but they prepared the land for development, for property.
Right.
So it's very, very different from some of this mining land, where they dig a lot of holes and then they say, okay, let's do property here.
That's right.
So it's very dangerous. But this one, they actually stockpile a lot of sand. They knew that they would go and apply for the land and make it into a property project. So in fact, if you look at the site, it's a hill. Instead of a flat with a lake, it's actually a hill.
Right.
So it's a high ground. There's no flooding issue or anything like that.
That's true.
We actually had to cut the hill down.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of strange. It's a mining land, but
Correct.
it's not really a mining land. It's a hill. So that's how we Kaizen property was started about 2008 at that time. Yeah, it's wholly owned by my wife and I. So that's how we. But fortunately, we have a lot of experienced staff which came together with me, including Stephanie,
Right.
and my project manager and a few other managers and senior managers here. So we decided to do it on our own.
Excellent. So ever since Kaizen was incepted, and then you've been moving. So
Yes.
the next question is, what are the challenges you had actually faced over these years?
The beginning was quite tough actually in Kinta property. There are two beginning. One is when I started with Kinta property. The other one is when I started on my own.
Right.
When I started with Kinta property, that was the financial crisis.
Oh.
1997. That was the year I got married. And then by the year 2000, the full effect was there. Ringgit dropped, to 3.8. Overnight, the bank, a lot of people were selling a lot of loans. And so Kinta property was no exception actually. We had a lot of loans.
Right.
Financial difficulty, projects was just about to start but haven't really taken off. So Middle Valley was one. The other one is under Barsui Klebang. At that time, just started actually. There was only two show house.
Right.
I don't know whether you know the place. It's a 800 or 900 acre land.
It's huge, yes.
And at that time, it was only two little show house. So we built. By the time I left, it was already, I think, in phase 3 or 4.
Right.
At one point, we were actually the biggest property sales in Ipoh.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, of the group, the Kinta Property Group. Yeah. So that was with the help of a lot of people, we managed to overcome the financial situation at that time, which was pretty tough, really.
Right.
Yeah. Then the second start was in Kaizen when I started this company. Although of course we have the basis already, the people who were there. But still, as a new company, especially the banks, they are very cautious and it was very difficult to secure loans. So that's why we also have to work with partners.
That's right.
So most of my projects I work with partners to do this, either a joint venture or like a shareholding partners.
Understand.
But luckily we have good friends, good partners. So we managed to pull.
I think years of experience and trust takes you a long ways.
Yes, yes, yes. In this business, it is very, very high risk in a way.
Absolutely.
Because the amount of money that you're involved is is far high, and you have a lot of responsibility to the buyer. If you sell a house, you must deliver. You know, whether yes, regulation-wise you have to deliver, but personally you also have to deliver because this is probably the biggest investment they have in their life.
That is true.
And you cannot like play the fool, you know. So we always delivered. All our projects we completed, we delivered. If we were late, we paid late delivery. We never
Committed to the end.
Yes, and of course at the end, even after that, there's the warranty period, and we try to give our buyer value for money.
That's right.
You can see from our houses, they're not very fancy, but they're very practical. Because every inch is the money, every inch is cost.
Correct.
So we try to give the best use of the house for
The
them.
entire space itself.
That's right. Some design, some layout, you know, on paper it's very big, but when you go inside, it's not practical. Maybe the living room is too big, the bathroom is too small, or something like that. It doesn't work out. Yeah, so you need to balance it.
That's right.
So we try to do that. And I think we managed to achieve that because all our houses are sold, and we try to keep the price reasonable all the time. Like
That's what we have noticed.
Yeah.
The price is very reasonable.
Yeah, it's better to meet the market's requirement and demand instead of trying to like keep pushing it high.
That's right.
We make some money, the people are happy, so things go smoothly.
Correct. Dr. Tan, we'd like to have one question put forward to you. Now, what is the relationship between Kaizen and PWP, and how does these two entities work together?
PWP is our exclusive marketing agent since we started Kaizen. And the reason is that when the people who started PWP were actually also from Kinta Property before, especially Stephanie and some other colleagues at that time. So when we set up Kaizen, they had the aspiration to set up a sales real estate agency. So we thought that it would be a good idea to do this together because that reduces our overhead costs at Kaizen, and it also gives a steady sales supply for the PWP. So we were very lucky. We worked with Mr. Yong, who owns PWP. He's the principal. He was actually also the sales agent for Golf Vista at that time, so it went back a long way.
Right.
So when we had our first project, we engaged PWP, in which I also have a small share, and to do the sales and marketing exclusively. And that arrangement has worked out very well over the years. We share office. The office is just right next door. And because the people actually have a very old relationship since Kinta Property time, so we know how we work together very well. So it's more than just an independent sales agent.
That's right.
Yeah. So
this is from a relationship which has been built over the years.
Yes,
it has evolved, right?
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
Most of the people they work with me for 20 years or more.
That's a long time.
Even in Kaizen, which is only halfway, it's already 10 years or more.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Tan, for giving us
Maybe
insight.
I just add a little bit because the other reason why we use a sales agent instead of having our own sales is because we saw that the people who are sales agent, they are much more knowledgeable and they are much more motivated compared to somebody who is hired in a company, sit at the desk and just waiting for customer to come.
Right.
So very proactive way of doing things as a sales agent. And that is very necessary, I think, for both the seller and the buyer. Because also for the people who want to buy houses, they need good advice. They need people who tell them what it is that they're doing. Because for most people, first time you buy a house, you have no idea what you have to do and what to look for, what is good, what's bad, you know, and all the legal part of it, the sales and purchase agreement, all the warranty and all that kind of stuff. So having a very experienced team to what do you call, advice, that helps the buyer a lot. Of course, it helps us in a way that because they don't just do our project, they also do third-party sales, sub-sales, other projects, as long as it doesn't conflict with our project. So we have good, what do you call, market information. So from there we know what the buyer are looking for, what are the new trends. So we try to fit what the market needs.
Very well structured.
Yeah, so both benefit both sides.
That's right.
COVID-19, yeah, this was something like completely unexpected, you know.
Correct.
I remember having to rush my children home from overseas. And it's almost like the war has broken out. I think in our lifetime, this is the war.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's the first time, isn't it?
Yeah, everybody has to stay at home, cannot get out. So, of course, our construction work has to stop because that was the law in INCO. Luckily, we have good contractors. They look after their people. They look after the foreign workers very well. So far, I haven't heard any big complaint. You know, they stayed. But it was tough. It was tough for 2 years. We were lucky because our project started a few years before.
Right.
And by the time the COVID hit, we were already in phase 2.
Right.
And normally phase 1 is the most difficult. Phase 1 is where we do all the major infrastructure. You have to basically invest a lot of money and manpower to do all these things. And if you don't, even though let's say your phase 1 is 100 unit out of 500 unit for the whole project, you have to build the infrastructure for the entire project. That's right. The elevated water tank, the sewage treatment plant, major roads and all that. So luckily we had that all done. So by the time COVID hit, we were in phase 2. We had a lot of orders on hand, what we call unbilled sales, sales which have been committed but we haven't constructed and we haven't built. Right. So we were in a relatively good position. We were not short of funds.
Fantastic.
And the contractor also, we try as much as possible to alleviate the contractor's problem because their costs keep running. So, whenever we pay their billings, make sure they can survive.
Fantastic.
Yeah. No point for anybody to suffer during that time. But luckily, the government changed the law. They gave an extension of time. Quite a long extension of time. Once it recovered, we were able to continue and complete the project without delay. Without delay here in Malacca, we had a little bit of delay.
Right.
Unfortunately, the recovery wasn't as fast, especially with the government agency.
Right.
Even though they say, okay, we are back to business, but the number of people working is like half or 1/3. They take on rotation.
Correct.
And so inspection and regulatory things takes a long time. Even though the contractor can work, the regulatory approval took a very, very long time, especially to get CCC. It's a very common problem faced by a lot of construction people to do the paper. But we managed, we delivered. So buyer also has to delay. So okay, everybody took a bit of a sacrifice.
Excellent.
So we managed to get through. We were lucky, I would say. Okay. If it happened 2-3 years before, we would be in a lot of trouble.
Right. What are your views for the property market in Ipoh, despite having so many competitors?
Ipoh is a kind of funny market. It is small compared to, let's say, Selangor, Johor, Penang. So we don't have a lot of big companies. Very few listed companies, almost none, I would say. And because the rate of sales here is not very high, it's okay. but it's not like in KL where you can build 1,000 houses in one phase and sell out in 1 year. We can't do that here. So it's not very conducive for big companies, but for small medium companies, which most contract developers here do okay. I think there's a demand. There's a very steady demand here. People buy for their own stay. Despite whatever news, a lot of people from Ipoh goes out to work, but they do come back, especially because their parents are here.
Right.
So they come back. So they buy houses to prepare for themselves. In the meantime, the parents stay and things like that. So we have a lot of sales like that. Eventually, they come back here. It's a very good place for bringing up children. Cost is low here compared to KL. So the demand is there, and then the towns surrounding Ipoh, people come into Ipoh. So there's an inward migration. Of course, there's outward migration. So it's kind of steady. There's growth. I don't know how much to grow, but there is steady demand for houses. But of course, the houses cannot be too high. It's mostly the under 500,000 type of house. Yeah, good value for money. It is competitive in that sense, right? But recently, because of the construction cost increase, it's kind of tough. Cost has increased quite a lot, right? But pricing, we try to keep the pricing still affordable, so there's not so easy.
Right. Dr. Tan, where do you see Kaizen in the next 5 years to come?
We will continue to, we still have about maybe 1/3 of our project here to continue. In Malacca also, we have a similar phase of the development in Malacca. Malacca, we joint venture with a local agency, government agency called Perak, and we build bungalows, single-story bungalow. Here we build double-story cluster semi-D, but over there we build bungalow. Pricing is all about there for 500,000, and the demand also is quite steady. So we will take another 3-4 years to complete these two projects.
Right.
In the meantime, of course, we have to be looking for maybe new joint venture partner or buy up new land to do development. We have a strong team here, so we will continue to do what we are good at.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Any plans on expanding Kaizen to other parts of Malaysia besides having here in Ipoh and in Malacca?
That kind of depends on the opportunities. If there's an opportunity somewhere, somebody will come and say, hey, there's a nice piece of land here.
So you're willing to venture?
We can look into it, consider. But from our own experience, it's very difficult to set up a team. Malacca, we ventured from here to Malacca. It took me 10 years almost to really kind of settle up a team there. Yeah, it's not so straightforward. I don't know what it is actually. It's just people don't know you, authority, they don't know you.
That's right.
And you don't know the market also. The market is very different. Like Malacca market and here, very different.
That's right.
Malacca market is almost exclusively Bumi Putra market, at least the place where we are now.
Right.
So here is maybe the Chinese market. Pricing is different, requirement is different. So before you know, you tend to make mistakes. We made some mistakes in Malacca.
Right.
After a while, you realize, okay, and to change our strategy.
That's true.
Yeah. And that alone, if you let's say go to KL or places like that, that's even more challenging.
Absolutely.
Because different competitor.
Thank you, Doctor, for giving us your time today. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate. We'd like to have, probably in the near future, we'll have another session with Dr. Tan.
Sure.
Right?